There are 7 board members present. I would also like to point out a special guest that we have with us this evening. The board is pleased to introduce to you our new superintendent, Dr. David McGehee.
We've been in town all day looking at houses and trying to find a place to live now, but I just want to thank the board for this opportunity and really just let you know how amazing the staff has been through all of my tours and all of the discussions we had and the community members that came, and they all had great questions. Some of them even better questions than you guys asked me, so and tougher ones, and so I appreciate that. It's just become very, very aware that we're coming to a place where the adults care about the kids, and that's very, very important to me, and I know that we're going to be able to work together to do some amazing things. And I appreciate Dr. Harder, and she's already been working hard to help me with some transition opportunities, and we've been scheduling that. So while we don't start till July 1, we've already started, so just so you know that. And then I say that this is the best part of the deal. Better than me. This is my better half, Shelley, and so she also got to look at houses with me today and kind of get a feel for Emporia, because she's only been down one other time. Back when I was here, a couple of years ago, she came down and surprised me on my birthday because I was in Emporia for my birthday. So appreciate her, and she will be a super support for me, and you guys will enjoy getting to know her. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I will go ahead and take a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion passes 7-0.
The next item is 3A, which is the recognition of Alexa Castillo and Kinsley Medrano and Emporia High School State Wrestling Champions.
The Board of Education would like to recognize Alexa Castillo and Kinsley Medrano, both juniors at Emporia High School, for their girls wrestling 5A state championships this past February. They became the first lady wrestlers to win state championships in Emporia High School history. Next, we would like to invite Emma Beatty and Daniel Gillenwater. The Board of Education is proud to recognize Emma Beatty, a sophomore, and Daniel Gillenwater, a junior at Emporia High School, for their outstanding achievement in receiving a 1 rating at the 2025 Acacia State Piano Festival, which took place in February. We would now like to invite Alexa Courtney and Hope East forward. The Board of Education is proud to recognize Emporia High School seniors Alexa Courtney and Hope East for their outstanding musical achievements. Both students earned this prestigious honor of performing with the Kansas All-State Choir at the Kansas Music Educators Association Conference held in Wichita. Alexa and Hope qualified for the All-State Choir through a highly competitive audition process in November. Their highly successful auditions also secured them places in the North Central District Honor Choir, which performed in December.
On behalf of the board, congratulations to all of our students on their outstanding achievements. That brings us to item 3D, public comment. Casey, is there anyone signed up for public comment this evening?
We do not have anyone tonight.
Okay, Thank you. As a reminder, anyone wishing to provide public comments should complete the online request to submit comments form. This form will need to be completed by 1 p.m. on Wednesday, the day of the board meeting. This brings us to the consent agenda. The items listed on the consent agenda are considered by the Board of Education to be routine business items. Approval of the items may be made by a single motion, second, and majority vote with no separate discussion of any item listed. Should a member of the board desire to discuss any item at his or her request, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. What are the wishes of the board?
I move to adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion passes 7-0.
That brings us to item 6A, supporting new teachers.
All right. We are always talking about the importance of retention and recruitment of high-quality teachers, and that is our focus about instructional coaches tonight. We have Dr. Erica Mickelson, Director of Teaching and Learning, Mrs. Tara Glades, Director of Student Services, who will introduce our guests.
All right, well, we're excited to have a portion of our instructional coaches here to talk to you about how we support new teachers. We have both general education and special education instructional coaches here to work together on this. So we have Mrs. Lauren Ayers, who is instructional coach at Village. I'm probably not going to turn away, so they're back there, so look at them. Mrs. Lauren Ayers, who's instructional coach at Village and Timmerman. Erin Morse is a special education instructional coach who supports Walnut, Logan, Jones, and William Allen White. Jana Marstall, instructional coach who supports Emporia High School. Tara Drennan is a part-time district instructional coach as well as part-time supporting Logan Avenue. And then Jessica Kellison, who is an instructional coach supporting Emporia Middle School.
And as we met to talk about just the presentation and what we were going to do, we started all these, kind of pulling out all these words. And so you'll see on this word bubble that we started just talking about networking, collaboration, reflecting with the new educators when they're meeting with them. But the major ones we started to talk through were support, because without the support of these wonderful ladies behind us, our new teachers would struggle, because they really need that support and help and just that sounding board. Also coaching, because our coaches coach alongside all of our teachers and all of our staff, but especially those new teachers that we have, whether they're new to the profession or new to us in the district. And then the other one was professional development. Because sometimes we think of professional development in the lines of our PLT days, but professional development happens at all times, even when the coaches are going to and from, and then they get stopped in the hallway and say, hey, can you help me with this? And they need to write that down and come back, or they're able to take those couple minutes to work with the teachers. So the coaches are actually going to take a little bit of time to talk through some of the pillars, some of the major things they work through, and then we have a special guest, one of our new teachers is here to talk through the support she's had this year.
Okay, so one of the first pillars that we had is just coaching, kind of what our role can look like day to day. And with that, through the coaching process, we provide modeling. That is one of the many things we do. Modeling might be stepping into a classroom and modeling a lesson for the teacher to observe. It could be modeling a small group lesson. It could be modeling an SEL lesson, or even classroom management techniques. It's really about modeling specific things that teacher might need and giving additional support. It could be modeling the curriculum and what that lesson looks like. The next thing would be observing, so stepping into that new teacher's classroom, observing their teaching, providing feedback, and it goes back to the next bullet of reflecting. So being able to provide feedback through maybe something that we modeled for them, maybe something they requested, or something that we've noticed they just need more support on. The next thing would be data analysis. That might come supporting them through analyzing that data. We have monthly data talks where we're looking at student data, looking at our intervention groups, and that's a really hard thing to step into and know how to do. So there's a lot of support that comes into helping kind of teach how to analyze data, because you miss that in college, you don't really, you get a little bit of it, but you don't get the depth that we kind of tend to go through. The next would be peer observation, so providing coaching support. It might be covering the classroom so that they can go and observe their peers. It would be scheduling peer observations and going with them sometimes so that we can reflect and talk about the observations they're seeing of their colleagues, which is very beneficial. The next one would be collaborating. So that could be lesson planning together. It could be talking through activities. It could be just brainstorming ideas with the next bullet of being an ear, a sounding board sometimes, to just be able to support and provide that collaborative setting with them.
All right, so the second pillar is professional development. And as coaches, we spend a lot of time with our new teachers in training and professional development. As you know, that all new teachers, whether they're brand new or just new to the Emporia district, come in a couple of weeks before the rest of the staff reports in August. And one of the things, or a couple of the things that we do with them as instructional coaches, we provide that dyslexia structured literacy training that is mandated by the state. And then we also spend about 3 hours with them during that time, just teaching them some best practices as far as literacy first and lesson planning components and things like that. So really to get them off on a good foot that first day of school. And then throughout the first year, new teachers, whether they're brand new again or new to the district, are pulled 2 days during that year. So usually once in September and another time in January, and they're provided professional development for those days. And then the second year in the district, they also have 2 more days of training with the instructional coaches. And it's just, things differ from district to district, and in our district, we're a CKH, we're AVID, we're Lit First, we're implementing PSYOP, and so just catching those teachers up on all of the initiatives and expectations in the Emporia district. So we do spend a lot of time with them on that. And then the implementation of that training, that's really what's most important, right? Not only the training, but helping them to implement what they're learning in that training. And so during our trainings, we try to build in some time where they can process and we can be there to help them. And then as Lauren mentioned, that observations and reflections are a huge part of that. So helping them to implement it, but then going in and watching them put that training into practice and then sitting down and reflecting with them later about that.
Much like our students needing differentiation, or our teachers need differentiation as well, and that looks a lot of different ways. We help them with organizing their small group structures. We help them with scaffolding their instruction. We help them with understanding that with that, especially with special education students, students need that repeated repetition of those lessons. So we differentiate that way. Our training that we provide on assessments, we ensure that teachers are giving those assessments with fidelity, so that way they're given the same every time, so we get those accurate numbers to know where we need to start with their instruction and placement. The differentiating then with that accurate instruction and placement can look different. How a student responds to a test, making sure that we are truly accurately assessing them and we know that what their needs are.
Okay, so the next pillar is support, and you're going to hear some of us say some of the same things because they kind of bleed into each other. All the pillars kind of bleed into each other. One of the ways we provide support for new teachers is with providing training for district and building resources. They can't use them unless we give them some training on those resources. In August PLT, some of that time that was talked about in the summer before they start, we have the opportunity to take them through a resource walk in our buildings so they can see the rooms where all the extra resources are located. And we don't provide training on those resources all at once. It's kind of as needed. So as they get to the skills that they need to teach, they may want an extra supplementary resource from that room, and that's when we provide training on those. Networking, each one of us coaches has a specialty in one area or another. We don't have all the exact same specialties. So it's really important, especially at the elementary level, that we network together. We do meet with each other quite often so that we can say, hey, I have a new teacher that needs support in Tier 1 or Tier 2 and Tier 3 resources, which is my specialty, versus another coach's specialty might have whole group instruction might be her specialty. So we try to align together those resources as people to be able to go and give training to teachers, as well as networking together on our classroom teachers, which classroom teachers are experts in certain things, so that we know how to align the observations that we send them on. We also offer co-planning. We'll sit with our teachers and plan with them so that they know which best practices to add to their lessons. Modeling assessments, we have a lot of assessments that we give at the elementary level, and some of them are one-on-one, and they're not as easy to give as we may think. So a lot of times it takes not just the training, but then we offer modeling. So we'll model the assessment, and we do it in the gradual release model where we give the training, we model the assessment. I may only have to model 1 or 2 times, and then the teacher's ready to take it over, or it may take a little more time before they're ready to give those assessments on their own.
The last pillar is miscellaneous, and there were a couple of key ideas under this one. The first one was stress management. Your first year of teaching can be pretty stressful. So we do this in a variety of ways. We help them with their work-life balance, how to manage that. We give them some ideas on classroom management, just how to manage that side of stress. And then the other one is like really a prioritization of tasks. Your first year of teaching, it can feel like you need to do everything all at once. So we just really work through how to prioritize those. What needs to be done today? What can wait till tomorrow? What can maybe wait till next week? So that's stress management. And then another one that's a big part is the confidential support. So we're a safe place for teachers to come, bounce ideas off, really be there to reflect with them, to be able to grow, to be able to answer any questions that they might have, but just in a safe, confidential spot.
And now we are going to hear from Mackenzie Baza. She's a second-year teacher at EHS.
Good evening. I'm actually really excited to be here to talk about how amazing our instructional coaches are. Just to start off, a little bit of background, I think it's really important to begin. I was a December graduate, and so I wasn't hired on until the following year in August. So that spring semester, I actually started off as a long-term sub. And I vividly remember, I don't know if Jana remembers this, but I vividly remember being in this classroom that I had to long-term sub in, and she walked in and she introduced herself, and she said if I ever needed anything to come to her office. She made me feel very, very welcomed on that first day, and it was a special moment because it was my confirmation. This employee is where I wanted to be. And she definitely made me feel welcomed and supported from the beginning as a long-term sub, not even as a first-year teacher. So since then, both Jana and Stephanie have really guided me throughout my first year and now second year teaching, guided me with lesson planning. You don't really realize as a student teacher, you only do so much. As an intern, you only do so much. And then you get put into a classroom, and then you're just like, oh my goodness, what do I do? And Jan and Stephanie were definitely great mentors, and they've provided so many lesson plan templates, how to create a lesson plan. lots of strategies that I've learned in my first year training and my second year teacher training as well. And I kind of like what Mrs. Drennan mentioned, that they actually model those strategies for you. It's definitely not one of those PD days where you just sit and you listen, and then you leave, and then you're just kind of like, okay, now what do I do with this? They actually model it. They give you some time, like how Jana mentioned, they give you some time to actually implement it in a lesson plan. The amount of resources, the amount of books, templates that I have been given by them, like, have definitely filled up the shelves in my classroom. And it's definitely things that you use every day. One of my favorite things of being a second year teacher is when they come in to observe me. I think the other day I actually told Jan, I said, hey, you haven't observed me in a while. You should definitely come. Like, I've missed having you in my classroom. And it's one of my favorite things because they, follow up with a reflection appointment. And even if you think you've done enough reflecting, you don't. They've asked me meaningful questions. I have definitely, every time that I come across a conflict and I'm like, no way Jana's gonna have a solution to this, or Stephanie's gonna have a solution to this, and then they each come up with like 5 solutions. And so, very great feedback, very great suggestions, and they've always made me feel welcome, supported, and never judged. Even outside of just being an instructional coach, they're definitely my go-to people in the building. During my planning period, I stop by in their office just to chat. Even as a first year, second year teacher, yes, we do need guidance through teaching, but you also need friends in the building, and they're definitely one of my go-to people in the building. Before wrapping it up today during lunch, I did ask a teacher who is currently in her first year teaching how she felt supported by our instructional coaches, and she said, they're honestly the best coaches. I was super blessed to have them as my instructional coach my first year teaching. They are always willing to listen and reflect with me. I asked another teacher who is in her third year teaching, and she said, they've supported me since day one, and they always have the right answers to guide me. Overall, just super grateful. Very motivated by them, and they have guided me to become the teacher who I am today. One more thing that I actually just remembered now, they've also encouraged me to get out of my comfort zone. So I'm an avid teacher because of Stephanie McCracken. I am in committees in the building because of Jana. So definitely great instructional coaches, and I don't think my first year teaching would have been as great as it was because of them. So thank you.
I have one more testimony to share. She was a little apprehensive to come and speak on her, so kudos to you. So I just have something written, but one thing, our presentation was more about the pillars we as instructional coaches do to support our new teachers, but there is one thing, and it is the mentor program, where teachers are able to collaborate and have a mentor that can be someone besides us that provides that networking support. And so in this testimony, you'll hear her mention having a mentor as being another support that our new teachers have. Okay, so her name is Shelby Hambleton. She is a second-year teacher, and she teaches first grade at Village Elementary. She said, "This is my second year teaching at Village Elementary, and I have received so much support from instructional coaches, my mentor teacher, and new teacher trainings. I'm also incredibly lucky to be on a team with 2 veteran teachers who have been in the same grade and building for many years, who share resources and ideas and allow me to share my ideas as well. District and building instructional coaches have come into my classroom to observe behaviors and lessons to help me think through my plans and ideas. They have also taught lessons from the district curriculum so I can see how someone else would teach the curriculum in my own classroom. My mentor teacher has shared resources and ideas for things I have struggled with. The new teacher trainings were especially beneficial when the instructional coaches allowed us to pick the topic of our training so it best fit our needs as first or second year teachers. I have gained a lot of insight and recommendations from the coaches and my peers through these trainings discussing behavior and classroom management, tools, curriculum, and small group instruction. Compared to a few of my first and second year teacher friends who work in different districts, I am so grateful for USD253 and the support, resources, and trainings I have been provided with my first and second year of teaching."
And then you can see a quote from Sheila Garza. She's a long-term sub currently at Walnut and William Allen White. She said, instructional coaches are a wealth of knowledge and are the gateway to all the resources needed to help our students be successful. The hands-on face-to-face interaction can't be replaced through emails or check-in meetings. So we know those things happen as well, but that real face-to-face time is crucial and important. So what questions might you have, either for me or people behind me?
I'm just going to pop in right now and say I hope all of your principals are watching and recorded this, because now they don't need to do a review because of the glowing reviews you all just received this evening. So amazing.
Yeah, I don't have a question so much as a comment, and I'm halfway through almost my 4th year, which is less than most of you, but this is like the most positive start to a meeting we've ever had between, the awards that were given and then hearing this. And we hear positive things about your team all the time, which is great to hear, but this was amazing to hear from you guys firsthand, and just how you're just genuine, and that is wonderful to experience firsthand. And I think I speak on behalf of most of you over there, and I know I speak on behalf of the board when I say, Jana, you can't retire till you're like 95. So you're just here, and you're not, you had just started when I was in high school, and I'm like, we can't ever lose her, like 95. And you'll still look like you're 60 then, so you're good.
Any other questions? Great, thank you. Okay. The next item is 6B, approval of class size capacity to guide transfer requests.
Okay, this has now become our annual agenda item, and Mrs. Judy Stanley, Assistant Superintendent of Teaching, Learning, and Student Services, is going to give some information and answer questions.
I'm not sure why I scheduled this after the instructional coach presentation. Okay, so this is the annual, you get to approve the capacities so that we know what we're looking at for transfer requests. We use these capacities for in-district, we use these capacities for out-of-district. In-district is really strictly elementary, since we have the 6 buildings, and we have to make decisions on those before May 30th so that we can publish how many spaces do we have available for out-of-district. We already have applications coming in, and when those applications come in, they're getting an email. We have someone in the enrollment office who's checking, are they already a student? Because we have families that are a little worried that will forget their transfer-ins. So they get an email that says, you're already approved as long as your student is in good standing. If they have a staff member, if their parent's a staff member, they're approved. And if they have a sibling in the building. So some of those are automatically approved, and they've already received notification. If they are families that have to wait for the capacities, then they receive an email that tells them when they will find out. So if they're an in-district transfer, they're getting an email that says you're going to find out between May 15th and May 30th. If they're an out-of-district, they're going to find out July 15th and July 30th. So we're trying to make sure they're all in that loop. When you look at the capacities for this year, elementary is pretty much the same. We left the teacher to student ratio where it's at. It leaves, that is not like when I look at kindergarten and look at 17 students to 1 teacher, that's not where we would add another teacher. That's where we max the transfer request, because we need to make sure that we're leaving space for in-district, the buildings, the kids that move in, as well as the automatic approvals. When you look at the secondary numbers, those capacities are a little bit different than last year. Secondary was a little harder to figure out because we have some classes that simply can't have a lot of students in them, like ceramics or glass blowing. And so last year when we looked at that, for the high school, we focused on English because every grade level has English. And I worked with Mrs. Bloomquist. We identified how many teachers did we have per grade level, and we used the capacity number, essentially what was in the course guide. That did not work out so well, especially for the first semester. We ended up with some core classes very, very large. And so we revamped a little bit. This year, what I did is I looked at the number of total teachers, not strategists, but the total teachers, whether they were electives or core teachers, divided it by 4 because there's 4 grade levels. That left us with about 17, 18 teachers per grade level. And then worked with Mrs. Bloomquist and Mr. Fisher to go, okay, what's reasonable here? How many students would be reasonable to, again, allow for move-ins, allow for automatic approvals. And where we landed was an 18-1. So if I'm looking at 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, we're looking at 300 being the max. If we have more than 300, we would not approve that out-of-district transfer request. The freshman class is a little bit lower. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, they're coming in from the middle school. They have a few higher needs. That year is a little bit more stressful than others because it's just new. The other reason is we are struggling a little bit with filling all of our science positions, particularly at the freshman level. So we want to make sure that we're not causing a need for a whole nother section or building a place where we end up with 30 kids, 30 freshmen in a class. So that led to the changes at the secondary level. At the high school. And then we just really made that shift. We did the same way for middle school, and it just happened to be that those 3 grade levels ended up with the same student-to-teacher ratio as the freshman class, so it was a kind of a nice little lead-in. So that's where we're landing. Those are our proposals for capacities. I am still a little trepidatious with the secondary, with the high school, because when you look at that, when you look at the total number of students, it's not that much less than it was last year. But when you also look and you see, well, we really don't have any room for transfer requests anyway, and I look at the teacher-to-student ratio, it's about 6 less than it was last year. I wouldn't suggest going lower because then it starts looking like we're trying to block kids from coming in. And really that capacity is to make sure we're not having to add staff or have too big of a class size. So what questions do you have for me?
So this past year was our first year with this.
Yes.
And you've touched a little bit on that, but what kind of things were we concerned about, or hiccups, and how did that work out? Because going into it, I mean, we didn't really know what to expect.
The biggest hiccup we had was when people started making transfer requests during the school year, because in the past we've done that. But this year, because of the deadlines with the statute for out of district, we kept that as a hard deadline altogether. So if you want to transfer, you need to make sure you're making that request for the next year. That was the biggest hiccup at the elementary in particular, because that's something we hadn't done in the past. It was easy with the out of district because there's a deadline. But that was the biggest hiccup. We actually were able to approve almost all of the transfer requests. The trick going into this next year will be looking at everybody that was approved and making sure they're a student in good standing, because then we have to notify the parents before school is out. Your child will not be returning if they're not a student in good standing. So we'll see how that goes. This will be the first year for that.
I do want to add, so Judy's being humble right now. So there was a lot of planning, over-planning, a lot of cross-training. So the teaching and learning team did an amazing job, and so we may have had a little, hiccup along the way. Other districts really did struggle with it because they didn't do the amount of preparation that our teaching and learning department did. So they did an excellent, excellent job, and the teaching and learning team is also making sure that there are no hiccups for the next year. So they're making sure that everything is in a really great foundation, and that handoff will be very smooth.
Dr. McGehee will know that we will have all this process written out for the next team. We don't want to leave them hanging.
So I have a question on, looking at the capacities for middle school and high school, and, we're right there at like the 289 to 300 is what we're shooting for, aiming for. So like for 5th grade, I see they're at 352. So 26, 27. Does that mean we expect most of them to also go to 6th grade, or are we kind of waiting to see? And are we going to have to hire more or adjust? I'm just looking at our staffing models and making sure, we're keeping the class sizes that we love. And that's exciting that there's more, right? But I just wondered what we think of that.
That dawned on me too when I looked at the total number that could possibly be at 6th grade. For the following year. Part of that is because of the number of teachers we have currently in 5th grade. We've set the capacity, the total capacity right now. If a building hits 26 students in a class, we add a teacher. So 26, 52, blah, 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 at fifth grade, which is still kind of high. It's kind of high. And because of that, some of our buildings, you can look at, let's say Walnut. Walnut only has 50 fifth graders, but because they have 3 teachers, they have the ability to have 66. That's what's throwing the number so high in fifth grade. Dr. Harder, Mrs. Stranathan, and I are looking at those capacities, making sure, is 26 the right number? Should we be lowering that? Because we do have a potential to have a problem if we should say, get that, let's see, 56 families that want to transfer into fifth grade, we would have to approve, then that is going to throw a wrench into sixth grade the following year. So we could definitely lower that. These are recommendations. We could definitely look at that fifth grade group and lower it.
I'm not suggesting that. You know what
No,
you're
but
doing.
I know.
Just wanted to talk it out.
It's a worry for me. Part of me is like, oh, the odds of 56 families moving in and wanting, out of district wanting in, when we really look at about 100 transfer requests a year, it's not likely, but it does leave the potential.
Yeah, I don't want to second guess you at all, but I see that number too, and I just, like, what if? What if we get to 340, 330, and then we might have the teachers in fifth grade to support that population now, but we might not have it in sixth grade. So that would be a concern to me.
The issue is the number of teachers we have at fifth grade. That is what's kicking it over. Because the ratio of 22-1 is the same at the fourth grade level. And yeah, we could have 17 in fourth grade, but you can see that that gap is not as big because we don't have as many fourth grade teachers.
Unfortunately, I get the math, so
Yeah.
I know it's a tricky one.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So when you have meetings with other 5A schools, are our class sizes similar or lower, or are we lucky?
We are lucky.
Okay.
Our class sizes are lower. They're used to 25 to 30 in elementary classrooms, which just is mind-boggling to me. But that's what we hear from people who work other places. So we want to protect that smaller class size. 26 stresses me at the fourth and fifth grade level. That stresses me out. My son, he was in a class of 28. Mrs. Ayers was his teacher. That's hard. That's hard. So trying to find that balance, but also knowing when you add that teacher, all of a sudden those classes go really low. And so really just maintaining what's the right number is difficult. But we are lucky in this district with our class sizes.
Yeah, I think I appreciate that, and I think sometimes we don't stop and give ourselves, a pat in the back or credit for that we've been able to get it down there and hold
Right.
it. Keep it down there for
Right.
lower ratios.
Any other questions? Okay, this is an action item.
I move to approve the recommended class size capacities to guide transfer requests as submitted.
Second.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, the next item is 7A, construction update from McCowan Gordon.
Okay, we haven't seen Mr. Eric Wolsey for a while. He's here from McCown Gordon to give us an update on William Allen White.
Good evening. Happy to say there's really not a whole lot to report because we're pretty much officially done, minus some miscellaneous cleanup stuff. So that's exciting. But updated the last time I met, kind of updated the schedule to essentially really showing the school taking full possession in May. So that's still the plan and the case. Really, we finished up. Casey, if you want to scroll through the next couple of slides of the pictures, but I wanted to just highlight some of the last stuff that we turned over back in February. The old kitchen space, since we built the new one, and the new high winds shelter and the multi-purpose room. Basically, that upper left picture is the old kitchen, so it's now a storage room. So it's some additional storage, which I know you can never have enough of storage in schools. And then that bottom left picture is part of the new mother's room. So added that room in there. And then that if you go back up real quick, sorry, the right picture just kind of shows we infilled a couple of windows for that mother's room to, provide, yeah. And then this is just, it's one of those things that's not real pretty to always look at, but it's nice to know that you have a nice solid roof now. So with the alternates that we have done since we started the project, these were the last really final alternates, was the roofing scope that, if you remember back in February, said, hey, we're going to wait until spring break so we can make some loud noise and not disturb classes during that. So that's what these pictures are showing. But essentially right now we're just cleaning up our laydown area, which the majority of the rock is out of there. It was in that green space that we took over for laydown just because we are on a tight site for storage. We have some patchback of some concrete that we tore up during construction, one for entry into that area that we're in the process of replacing that. So as soon as we get that all prepped, we'll place it, and then we'll finish grading out the topsoil, and then we'll seed, and then, yeah, we're officially done at William Allen White. So it's exciting. And next time, plan is I'll come back in May and kind of give an overall recap. But yeah, William, I know that said 95%, but you could probably put that at 99% now. So, but yeah, any questions that I can answer?
Questions?
Talked about the May meeting, just doing an overview of from the beginning of construction, which seems like forever ago, to now, and then just looking at, we're still paying bills, finalizing everything, and if there's any funds left over. And I know Mrs. Stranathan and Mrs. Cape are working on that with Piper Jaffrey as well, just what that's going to look like. So hopefully we can bring some of that back to in May.
Yep. Yeah, and I want to thank you from Accountant Gordon for the opportunity to work with the school district. It's been fun. I know it's been, for me, it started in 2018, so it's been quite a while, but it's been fun. It's enjoyed getting to know all your folks and admin staff, and the district as a whole has been great to work with and very accommodating, and just very appreciative of all. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you. Okay. Item 7B, technology purchases for summer 2025 replacement.
Hey, Mrs. Pam Stranathan, Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations, will introduce also Paul Beatles, Director of Information Technology.
So just want to apologize. I know at the last minute we had to change the document out because of economic uncertainties that have occurred that caused an increase in that pricing. One of the things I do, Paul's going to not like me for this, but I want to give a shout out to Paul. When I first started, I had them do a 1, a 3, and a 5-year plan, and Paul has done an incredible job of staying within that and keeping the budget and planning out for the 5 years, so that's exciting. One of the things that I asked him to do at the last minute for you all too was to put together the last document in there that divides it out by buildings so you can see where the technology is going to each building. I think that's important, especially as we look at the needs assessments that are coming out of the buildings and stuff, and trying to meet those needs and communicating that out to the principals too, that's on our list. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul if you have any questions. Just so you know, there may be some other last-minute economic uncertainties that are coming through. I know McCall Gordon left, but that came up today, that there was some economic uncertainties on some of our furniture that was going to come in on that bond. So I'll turn it over to Paul.
Good evening. The technology purchase proposal here, first thing we're doing is addressing some end-of-life equipment, and then wanting to continue to support existing equipment life cycle rotations that we managed to implement here over the past couple of years, and add some additional items into those same life cycles. Starting when we look at end of life, we're talking about Windows 10 workstations that are still in use in the school district. Windows 10 no longer will receive security updates after October 2025. We've been slowly kind of bringing those out as we could. Typically, when you look there, you're going to find them in your VE2 locations, like your CAD labs. They might power a specific piece of software to run a lathe or something like that. So we've kind of got the last big chunk there done, working with the high school to replace their CAD and their Mastercam lab, leveraging both some hyper-virtualization software to deliver SolidWorks down to students' devices, but then still delivering Mastercam traditionally on some laptops. So we actually cut the lab size down because that will allow students to pair up and work together with Mastercam. We're looking at using their own laptops and docking them to do the cloud-based SolidWorks. I'm kind of excited to see how that one plays out. I think it will be really good. Some of the other pieces there, we have a lot of 6th gen iPads in the district that no longer receive security updates, and we're anticipating, typically what we see with Apple is you get about 5 years of security updates on an iPad before they won't go up to the newest version of operating system. So we're anticipating that the 175 to 180 iPads that Jones will need will no longer receive those security updates. So we've added those in as, that's kind of a larger purchase. We didn't break them up. It's just the entire building at one time. We would look at, as we move forward on these items kind of out there, trying to make sure we're not running them up right to the end of their life. We like to give ourselves a little breathing room and not be like, you got to do the CAD lab this year. This is it. So I'm excited to see how those move forward as we work through them. The existing system life cycle, that's the pieces we talk about frequently. That's our, we're doing 1 grade in K-5 for student devices. We'll do 6th grade. They'll start off with a new device, and our 9th graders, our freshmen, will start off with a new device as well. And continuing to try to keep our staff so they're not on laptops more than 4 years old, and staff desktops at 7 years old are kind of how we establish some of those life cycles. The things we're looking to add that we currently don't have in really a rotation has really just been either through bond construction or items breaking, but looking to start tackling all the different displays that we have throughout the district, whether it's digital signage out in the hallways or what's in front of the classroom or the things that our other staff members might use, or even the things that students are docking their equipment to. How long do we want to run out a monitor or a TV or a projector, and really aiming for 10 years again? The goal being is we really want to replace things before they break. I don't want to have a classroom down or see a student frustrated because their device isn't working because we ran them out so long. Some of the differences as you see through here, because I know some of the numbers can be confusing. Licensing. So when we think about how we license patch management and software management for our Windows devices, that's done through a software platform called PDQ. It's an annual licensing. Since we're just replacing Windows machines with Windows machines, we're actually seeing a reduction in the amount of Windows machines, so that licensing cost would go down. It's not represented here because it's something we've just been doing, and I didn't dig the numbers up on it. Same with our MDM. That's our iPad management to make sure we can push apps to them, make sure they're patched correctly. And usually with Windows, we see it's about $25 a machine. iPads is about $550, and that's just an annual licensing. If you add more iPads, we got to buy more as perpetual. Chrome, and the reason why you see that $31 licensing show up there is theirs is per device. So when I buy a laptop, I buy a management license, and if I use the laptop for 7 years, the license is good for all 7 years. If the laptop should break, maybe there's an accident, student drops it and we can't fix the laptop. When we buy a same model, they actually let us transfer that license to the new model. So pros and cons, both ways you want to do it, but I did want to point that out that there are some differences there if you were wondering. And when we looked at licensing on the 14-inch student devices for our freshmen, they actually included the license into the cost of the equipment. Our quotes for the other equipment, they had it split out as a separate piece. So what we got? This is something kind of new. We're looking to do cases for middle school students. As we know, they're our toughest grade on them. And I would love to see just a few less come into the library. I'm not so much worried about the cost of the repairs. The cases, I think, were $8,693.75, but our goal was to save people time. I want to minimize the classroom disruption. I want to minimize the student going to the library, and I'd really like to see those devices just hold up a little bit better with those kids. It's not horrible. It's not something that I'm like, oh, if we don't buy them, it's the end of the world, but I do think they would be a good investment, mainly based on time. It was hard to really put it to a number with repairs. Our 6th graders have been really good this year. Some of the things the middle school administration have done have really helped, I think, put the importance of taking care of that equipment. So we talked about the economic uncertainties. On some of these contracts, they did come in slightly lower due to economies of scale. On some, we got a price update just recently, which was kind of a shock, but I can understand those pieces, and we're not alone in that. So total budget request being $761,930.49. Those are across various funds, but the majority would be out of capital outlay. Questions about a pretty large technology order?
I have a question. Pam, before you spoke, talked about how there had been a change in the document because of the economic uncertainty and all the tariffs happening. If people have been paying attention to the news now, I think the tariffs on China at least have gone way, way up. Everything else, I think, is allegedly at 10% unless they retaliate. And so I guess my first question for you is, what was this price before it had to be changed? So that we would know the difference, so we can educate ourselves on how much of that cost is being put back on the consumers, because corporations don't eat that. They make the customer pay for it. The same way our health insurance adds to your premium when the money you've put in has, been outspent by claims. So I'm kind of curious what the difference is, and do we know how much that might change now with what's happening?
So I would like to state my understanding, and I talked to every one of the vendors that gave us these quotes off these contracts. They said, as far as they know, we're good to go if the POs come in. He did say, if you sit around and wait a couple of weeks to get me the PO, I don't know if we can necessarily honor the quote. We saw about a 6% increase. It was on the student high school laptops. The original quote came in sort of mid-March, and when I had reached out for updates, I got one late, which had bumped it up to $427. I want to say it was $401.75 off the top of my memory. I could get you the exact numbers if you would like. I just don't have them in front of me, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I just kind of wanted to get an idea of what the actual cost was that we're having to eat now.
I was worried that they would be much more expensive. And in all the conversations I was putting these together in March, the vendors were really pushing hard to get them in now before April hits. It just took a while to put all these pieces together and have the conversations with administrators about their building needs.
Yeah, and I think we're kind of in that position where the sooner we make this purchase, the better for us. The longer we wait, the more we're going to have to pay in. That's all I have.
Any other questions?
Just thank you for such a thoughtful, well-put-together presentation. You really covered all the bases, and, I don't want to say justified, but you explained the reasoning, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we know that the change in cost is not your fault. It's, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I echo what Leslie says. Thank you for all your hard work on putting this together.
I move to approve the purchase of the technology equipment for replacement over the summer of 2025 as submitted.
Second.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Okay, item 8A is board reports. Is there a report from the Tech College?
Nope, we don't meet till next Monday. We're the second Monday of each month.
But you all had a really nice event on Thursday.
We had our thank you for reminding me, we had our capital campaign kickoff last Thursday. We announced our lead gift of $2 million from the Jones Jones Trust. It was really exciting. The students led tours of the different, areas of the Tech College, so we got to see different programs in action, and the students were actually in class, so they just were making all kinds of noise and doing their thing in the background, and it was really interesting. There was a great turnout. It was a very exciting day for what we hope turns out to be a successful campaign and a great addition to higher education in Emporia.
And can I add, I went and I took the tours, and it was so amazing to see the students, and some of them are our students who were there. And we walked into the automotive center, and I did not know that anyone can bring their car in to get repaired there. That was amazing. Yes, I loved it. Like they're getting real world experience.
I could have saved so much money.
What if I have a car that needs an oil change, like, tomorrow?
Look what you started, Jamie.
Well, they did say that they might have a more competitive rate, but there's no guarantee in time, because it's also a, it's also a teaching tool, so, but amazing.
Great. Okay, Emporia Rec Commission.
Yeah, so it has been a busy time for the Rec Commission. We have an interim executive director now, our former executive director retired, and so Fred Lowry interviewed this past Monday evening. He was from Hilton Head, South Carolina, and then on the 15th, which I believe is this coming Tuesday, starting about 5, there'll be interviews and a public meet and greet, so if the public wants to come, about 5 o'clock would be a good time to meet the candidates. And the next 2 candidates we're going to interview are John Mark Woolhams from the Deerfield Park District, which I believe is like a suburb of Chicago in Illinois. And then Amanda Gutierrez, our interim executive director, applied too. And so between that, the National Association of School Board Conference, and then 3 back-to-back evening interviews for the superintendent position here, I'm thoroughly convinced and just adamant that I'm not hiring anyone else after next week. We're going to be done. I want a break. But all that said, it's a really exciting time for the rec.
Great. And then, speaking of, we had some board members attend the National Association of School Boards Conference. So Grant and Jeremy, if you have anything to share from the conference?
Yeah, it was pretty phenomenal. I'm on my 2nd term in the school board, and just because I've always been, busy with work and 23 acres and a bazillion animals and other boards and activities, I never really had the time to go to the conference, but I decided to this year. And I'm thoroughly upset at myself that I never went before, because it really was a blast. You got to meet people from all across the country. I met school board members, ran into the Junction City School Board. They had about 4 or 5 of their people there, as well as made some connections with folks from New York, Nevada, Utah. And it was really just a good experience to meet folks from different places and bounce ideas off. I really appreciated the workshops and the continuing education. I was telling Grant how I like that so much more than even the evening speakers. I'd rather just have another 2-hour segment of workshops to go to learn stuff. One of them that I took, just to kind of highlight a few, was a workshop on the impact of COVID-19 on K through 12 mental health. And I think it was a school, I want to say it was out of California. It was somewhere the West Coast, I think, and how they really embraced telehealth to get more mental health services into the school and open that up to people and families that normally wouldn't access it. There was another workshop I took about, it was funny because I saw it on the agenda and I was like, oh, I bet you I'm going to run into Grant. And it was transitions between superintendents. And what we basically learned was as long as your superintendent is actively working with the incoming superintendent, it's smooth. When they don't do that, it's weird. So I don't think that's something we have to worry about. And then one that was really interesting was a school district, and I can't remember which state they were from, but they did a presentation on AI. And I think the gist of it was they were talking about ways that people can utilize AI, ChatGPT or DeepSeek or anything to, work smarter, right? Work smarter, not harder. I would have liked to seen some more discussion about how to ethically utilize AI in a way where you're using it as a tool. As my friend would say, use your tools, don't be the tool. But I think that that's something that maybe we probably just want to be more cognizant of, that people are going to use that tool in their life to make things a little bit more accessible, easy, and quicker. You can save a lot of time creating a lesson plan through AI, but you want to make sure you don't rely on it such that it's not a quality product that you create. And so that was interesting because I think that's going to be kind of a new frontier, not just for education, but a lot of other industries as well. It was phenomenal, and I got to go to the Georgia Aquarium, and every night I doom scroll the news now. I just think to myself, I want to be a fish and go live in the Georgia Aquarium, because it was really nice.
So not to add too much more to what Jeremy said, because I mentioned it earlier before the meeting, but one of the kind of hot topics was AI, artificial information, and it seemed like it was in a lot of different sections there. And I think it was kind of interesting because different places were approaching it differently, and some of them, it's very much their friend, and they thought it was a very good education tool. Obviously, how you do it, what you do with it is important, versus, as we all know, being very cautious with that type of thing. Sessions and people from very, very small districts to very, very large districts. One thing I always find interesting, there's a lot to learn, but sometimes we don't always appreciate what we're already doing. Some of these people think that they got some hot topic, and we've been doing it for a while and doing it very well. But there are things that we are learning, and it's very useful that way. So, the AI, the superintendent transition, children, and very much the challenges and how that's being dealt with. As we all know, our demographics continue to change on special needs and so forth. So there's a lot of good sessions with those kinds of things. So always a good session, always a good conference, and meet a lot of good people. So good job.
Great. Thank you all for sharing. I hope a few more of us can go next year. I was sad that I couldn't go this year. Okay. Item 8B, board policy updates, second reading.
Okay, Mrs. Pam Stranathan, Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations, for second reading. And Casey.
Casey, so it sounds like it's on, yeah. Okay, so on the second reading here, this, remember we were retiring GAE because that was the one with grievances, and those steps we had already put over into the negotiated agreement, and that would become complaints. And then we also had ING, that one changed up also, and that has to do with our service animal guidelines going into that. So any questions for Jared? There he is. Look, he's hiding over there. What's up with that? So.
Lillian also, correct?
Oh,
On
yeah,
the
Lillian
committee.
also.
Yes,
There's a
I'm
lot
also
of
on the
people on that,
committee.
is there not?
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Are there any questions? Okay, well, this is an action item.
I move to approve to retire policies GAE and ING, and to approve new and revised policies GAE, ING, and KO as submitted.
A second.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. That's probably our shortest one, right? We didn't have to read the whole alphabet twice. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone on the committee and for all the work that we did to, that Jared did to put together the service animal procedure and the research that you did on that. Thank you. Okay, item 8C is approval of superintendent contract.
I move to approve the contract with Dr. David McGehee as the Superintendent of Schools for the term 2025-2026 through 2026-2027 school years, and authorize the President to sign the employment contract on behalf of the Board of Education.
A second.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, that brings us to 9A, executive session for personnel.
I move to go into executive session for 10 minutes to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel in order to protect the privacy interests of the individuals to be discussed, and return to open session at 7:14 p.m. Superintendent Dr. Allison Harder is invited to attend. Action is anticipated.
Second.
Motion passes 7.
Regular session.
Second.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. And then we have action following the executive session.
I move to approve superintendent transition stipends to Lindell Landgren and Casey Jones in the amount of $2,000.
A second?
Who made that motion? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
And thank you, Casey and Lindell, for all your hard work. I know a lot of it was done behind the scenes, but we so appreciate everything you did to make this happen. Okay. Item 10A is future board calendar dates. Our next board meeting will be Wednesday, April 23rd. We will start at 5:30 that evening. We'll have a study session ahead of the regular board meeting. Then on Wednesday, April 30th at 5 p.m., we will be at White Auditorium for staff recognition. Wednesday, May 14th at 6 p.m. is our regular board meeting for May here at Mary Herbert Education Center. And then Sunday, May 18th at 3 p.m. will be Emporia High School graduation at White Auditorium. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, my mouse just quit. Can we do a hand vote, please? Thank you. Motion passes.